They believed the desert would break first. They believed steel could conquer thirst. They believed centuries of victories had made them untouchable. For nearly 100 years, Crusader knights had ridden through the Levant with banners raised and swords drawn. They had carved kingdoms from foreign soil. They had built castles where none had stood before, and they truly believed that no force in the east could destroy them in open battle. But history does not reward belief. It rewards preparation. It rewards patience. And in the summer of 1187, beneath a merciless sun near the Horns of Hattin, belief turned into disaster. This was not a battle of surprise. It was a battle of miscalculation, a battle where one side marched forward with confidence, and the other waited with certainty. This is the story of how Saladin, through discipline, logistics, intelligence, and restraint, defeated the Crusader armies not by brute force alone, but by understanding the nature of war itself. To understand Hattin, one must understand the world that produced it. In 1099, the First Crusade captured Jerusalem. The city fell in blood. Muslim and Jewish inhabitants were slaughtered. The shock of that event echoed across the Islamic world for generations. From that moment, the Eastern Mediterranean entered a permanent state of militarized tension. Out of conquest came the Crusader states Jerusalem, Tripoli, Antioch, and Edessa. They were wealthy, heavily fortified, and dangerously isolated, surrounded by hostile territory, dependent on reinforcements from Europe, and reliant on a specific style of warfare. The Crusader armies were built around one core belief: decisive shock wins wars. Their knights were the most heavily armored warriors of their age. Chainmail, plate. Lances were horses bred for impact. When they charged on open ground, few enemies could stand. This doctrine had brought success, but it came with weaknesses. Heavy reliance on cavalry, high logistical demand, limited endurance in extreme heat, dependence on water sources, rigid formations in Europe. These weaknesses were manageable. In the Levant, they were lethal. For decades after the First Crusade, the Muslim world was divided. Rival dynasties, political mistrust, local conflicts overshadowed the threat of the Crusaders. But slowly, that began to change. Out of this fractured landscape rose a leader, not driven by vengeance. Albay, Adien, Yusuf. Ibn Abay, known in the West as Saladin. Saladin was not born a conqueror. He was educated as an administrator, trained in law, governance, and Islamic jurisprudence. He understood warfare not as chaos but as responsibility. Islamic law forbade the killing of civilians. It emphasized restraint, justice, and accountability even in victory. Saladin carried these principles into command. This earned him loyalty. It earned him legitimacy. And it earned him patience. By the 1180s, Saladin had unified Egypt and Syria. For the first time since the Crusades began, the Crusader states faced a coordinated opponent. Saladin did not rush toward Jerusalem. He understood the Crusaders' strength lay in fortified defense and shock cavalry, so he avoided both. Instead, he targeted supply routes, isolated fortresses, political pressure points. His goal was not destruction, it was control. In July 1187, Saladin laid siege to Tiberias. Militarily, it was a minor objective. Politically, it was explosive. Tiberias belonged to Raymond III of Tripoli, one of the most experienced Crusader leaders. Saladin knew exactly what would happen. The Crusader leadership would be forced to choose between holding position near water or marching to relieve the city inside the Crusader Council. Debate erupted. Raymond advised caution. Remain near let Saladin withdraw, but others driven by honor, pride, and religious zeal demanded action. King Guy of Lusignan faced immense pressure, and he chose to march. The Crusader army abandoned reliable water sources. They marched east into arid terrain in the peak of summer. Under full armor, Saladin's scouts watched every movement. His light cavalry harassed relentlessly, never engaging fully, never allowing rest. Waterskins emptied. Horses collapsed. Discipline eroded. By the time the Crusaders reached the Horns of Hattin, they were already exhausted. Hattin was unforgiving. Volcanic hills, dry plains. No rivers. No wells. Saladin positioned his army carefully. He controlled movement. He controlled space. And most importantly, he controlled time. Saladin did not attack immediately. Instead, he allowed thirst and fear to work. Archers fired intermittently. Fires were lit to choke the air with smoke. The Crusader camp descended into chaos. Men whispered prayers. Horses screamed. Armor became unbearable. This was psychological warfare at its purest. When combat finally began, it was unabin. Crusader charges failed. Horses lacked strength. Infantry formations crumbled. Saladin's troops rotated constantly fresh units, replacing exhausted ones. This was not accidental. It was preparation. At the center of the Crusader army stood the true cross, a relic believed to guarantee victory. When it fell into Saladin's hands, morale collapsed completely. Kingai was captured alive. Reinald of Tilin, known for massacres and broken truces, was executed personally by Saladin. Not out of rage, but according to law. When the dust settled at Hattin, the battlefield was quiet. Not the quiet of peace, but the quiet of finality. The Crusader army of the Kingdom of Jerusalem was gone. Not defeated, not retreating. Erased. Thousands lay dead. Thousands more were prisoners. For the first time in nearly a century, the Crusader states stood defenseless. Their castles intact, their cities still standing, but their field armies destroyed. Saladin did not celebrate wildly. There were no orgies of vengeance. Instead, there was calculation. Hattin was not the goal. It was the key. After Hattin, Saladin faced a decision that would define his legacy. He could march directly on Jerusalem, symbolic, sacred, irresistible, or he could do something colder, smarter. He chose the second. Jerusalem meant nothing if the coastline remained in Crusader hands. Ports meant reinforcements. Ports meant fleets from Europe. Ports meant survival. So Saladin unleashed his forces across the Crusader world, with no field army left to stop him. City after city fell. Acre, Jaffa Sidon, Beirut, Ashkelon. Some resisted. Most surrendered. Why? Because Saladin had built a reputation, not of cruelty, but of predictability. Cities that surrendered were spared. Civilians were not massacred. Property was often respected. In a medieval world defined by terror, this mattered. Crusader garrisons understood the reality. Fight and die, or surrender and live. This was psychological warfare refined into governance. By September 1187, Jerusalem stood isolated. No relief army, no external aid, no illusion left. Inside the city were roughly 60,000 civilians, only a few thousand defenders, limited food, limited weapons. Command fell to Balian of Ibelina, nobleman, not a general. Balian faced a nightmare. If Jerusalem resisted, the city would fall by assault, and medieval assaults meant slaughter. But Balian knew Saladin's character, so he gambled not on force but on negotiation. Saladin surrounded Jerusalem, but unlike 1099, there was no immediate storming, no indiscriminate bombardment, no rush for blood. Saladin positioned artillery carefully. He cut supply routes. He waited. Jerusalem's defenders fought back desperately, but everyone inside knew the truth. They could not win. Balian approached Saladin. He made a terrifying threat. If Jerusalem was stormed, he would destroy Muslim holy sites, kill prisoners, reduce the city to ashes. Not out of malice, but desperation. Saladin understood. This was not a bluff, and he understood something deeper. Jerusalem was sacred to Islam, but it was also sacred to Christianity and Judaism. If he massacred its people, he would destroy everything he claimed to protect. So, Saladin did something extraordinary. And negotiated. On October 2nd, 1187, Jerusalem surrendered. Ransoms were set. Prisoners were freed when possible. The poor were often released without payment. Christian holy sites were protected. Jewish communities were allowed to return after nearly a century of exclusion. The contrast with 1099 was unmistakable. Even Christian chroniclers recorded it with disbelief. Saladin did not enter Jerusalem as a conqueror drunk on revenge. He entered as a ruler. News of Jerusalem's fall exploded across Europe. Kings wept, popes preached, crowds panicked. This was not just a military defeat. It was a psychological collapse. The Third Crusade was declared. And from Europe's most powerful courts came three figures: Richard I of England, Philip II of France. Frederick Barbarossa of the Holy Roman Empire history often portrays what followed as a duel of legends. But reality was more complex. Saladin did not underestimate the coming storm. He fortified, he reorganized, he prepared defenses. He understood something the Crusaders often forgot: winning a battle does not end a war. I triceps Italiano Jerusalem et fallen. But the war was far from over. A new confrontation loomed not between armies, but between two systems of leadership. One defined by impulsive glory, the other by calculated restraint. By 1189, the Mediterranean world was holding its breath. This was no longer a war of minor kings and border skirmishes. This was a collision of titans. From Europe came Richard I of England, warrior king, tactician, Crusader icon. From the Islamic world stood Saladin, unifier, strategist, ruler shaped by patience rather than impulse. History often frames this as a duel, but the truth is colder. This was not a fight between two men. It was a confrontation between two philosophies of war. Richard was everything the Crusaders admired: brilliant in battle, fearless under pressure, devastating in direct confrontation. At Arsif, his army proved it. The Crusader infantry absorbed wave after wave of Muslim cavalry harassment. When discipline finally broke, Richard unleashed a counterattack that smashed Saladin's forces. It was a tactical masterpiece, and yet it changed almost nothing. Richard won battles. Saladin won wars. Arsif restored Crusader morale. It secured the coastline, but it did not reclaim Jerusalem. Why? Because Saladin refused to fight the wrong war. He avoided decisive engagement. He burned supplies. He shadowed, harassed, delayed. Saladin understood logistics better than glory. Richard's army needed constant resupply. Saladin's forces lived off controlled territory. Time favored Saladin. It was a war of endurance. Crusader armies depended on sea supply. Muslim forces maintained unity under a single command. Every mile inland weakened Richard. Every delay strengthened Saladin. Jerusalem waited, not behind walls, but behind reality. Twice Richard marched toward Jerusalem. Twice he stopped, not because he lacked courage, because he understood the truth. Even if Jerusalem fell, he could not hold it. Saladin would cut supply lines, harass retreat, force abandonment. Jerusalem was no longer the war's center. It was a trap. In 1192, the war ended not with triumph but agreement. Jerusalem remained under Muslim control. Christian pilgrims were guaranteed access. Crusader states survived but diminished. Europe claimed honor, but strategically. Saladin had achieved everything that mattered. Saladin did not destroy the Crusader presence completely, and that is exactly why he won. He secured Jerusalem, maintained unity, avoided overextension, preserved legitimacy. The Crusader states would never recover their former power. Hattin ensured that. Hattin was not about numbers, it was about miscalculation. Heavy cavalry could solve every problem. Courage could replace logistics. Religious zeal could overcome geography. Saladin believed war is preparation, not emotion. History sided with the second belief. Thousands died to history never named. Foot soldiers, civilians, trapped between ideologies. Victory and defeat blurred at ground level. Only survival mattered. The Battle of Hattin was not the end of the Crusades, but it was the end of Crusader dominance. It proved a timeless truth of war. Armies fall not when they are weaker, but when they misunderstand the war they are fighting. Saladin did not win because he was perfect. He won because he learned faster. And Hattin remains, not as a symbol of conquest, but as a warning against arrogance and a lesson in restraint.